or this statement will be sought from. We'll seek a statement from the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security as well. The statement is on the provision of counseling and psychosocial support services to police officers. The Honorable Member for Kamkunji Constituency, Honorable Yusuf Hassan, will be seeking a statement from the Departmental Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations on the status of United States troops within the Kenyan territory. And finally, on the statements which will be sought, the Honorable Member John Njuguna Wanjiku, the Member of Parliament for Kiambaa, will seek a statement from the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing on the construction of the Nairobi Southern Bypass. If you're just joining us, on your screen is the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Justin Muturi, who has taken a bow and is now walking to take his seat to oversee the business of the National Assembly this afternoon. It will be a very busy afternoon for the members, and you will watch this engagement live on KBC Channel 1 as well as Bunge TV. My name is Edward Kabasa. Enjoy your viewing.
Nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala wa haki wa wanadamu. Twakusihi ututazame kwa neema nyingi. Sisi watumishi wako ambao tumerithika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri yetu. Twakuomba ututeremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, na utujalie tuyatende na kuyafikiria mambo yote atakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa ajili ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe, na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu, na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amina.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages.
Okay. There's a message which will come later.
Order number 4, petitions.
Members, we should notify the House that I've received a petition pursuant to Standing Order 225 2B and Article 119 of the Constitution, and the petition is that there's an organization known as the East Africa Tour Guides and Drivers Association of PO Box number 26176 Nairobi, calling for the entrenchment of the definition of tour guides in the Tourism Act, as well as the inclusion of a tour guide's representative in the tourism board and other tourism-related boards. The petitioners introduced themselves as an association that represents trained and licensed practicing tour guides and drivers
in other sectors within the heritage of our nation. Honorable Speaker, that petition should be given the due treatment and this group of workers be accommodated appropriately. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Jomo Ashieli.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to join my colleagues in thanking the petitioners for that petition and quickly add that, Honorable Speaker, we have traveled around the world beyond East African countries. For example, myself, I've been to Israel, I've been to New York, Washington, D.C., where tour guides have really played a major role in informing what has happened over time. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I think this was a serious oversight. This is a country that is short of employment, and I am thinking that if we recognize these tour guides, this will be another way of creating employment, and the faster we did that, the better for this country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Emuhaya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Very briefly, it's actually a labor issue because the tour guides operate at the shop level, the lowest level of that particular profession. And again, Honorable Speaker, on the educational line, these tour guides are actually trained and they pay money in several colleges. And when they end up outside there, then they are not recognized, they are not defined within the Act. So I think this is a good petition, though to the tourism, but it's also a labor issue which needs to accommodate these people so that they are properly put in their place and remunerated. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Dr. Tum Chebet. There's something wrong with your gadget. Can you give her?
Yeah. Yeah, Honorable Speaker, I stand to support the tour guides in this country are doing a commendable job. They are the ones who are selling our nation. They give the right information to the people who come to our nation. And Honorable Speaker, they need to be incorporated in various ports in tourism sector. Honorable Speaker, these people also need to be considered to be given some money from sports fund. We just give out money from sports fund to different groups. So this is a group which should be considered in this nation. They are the youth, and currently, Honorable Speaker, we have youth unemployment in this nation. And when we take charge and when we take care of the tour guides, when they are represented in bodies which are legally recognized, their rights will be taken care of. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Member for Wajir South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to add my support for this petition. It is true that the tourists, come here to Kenya for the purpose of tourism, and I want to correct Honorable Sankok on saying that is where the rubber meets the tarmac. I would rather say that's where the tire meets the tarmac. So that is more palatable to utilize that. That is on the lighter note. But it is important that we know that Kenya, 163 billion shillings was received through tourism in 2019. In 2020, it is about 37 billion. That's a huge chunk of income that this government earns. And therefore, we cannot ignore the individuals that run the show on this matter. Therefore, I do support this petition. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Finally, Honorable Mzigi Mnene.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipatia hii fursa. na mimi niweze kuchangia, na nataka kusema utalii ulikuwa nguzo ya uchumi wa Kenya na haswa kule pwani, na tumewaona mabwana wale ambao wanaongoza watalii kwa kuwaonyesha viegezo na sehemu tofauti na kazi nzuri ambayo wamekuwa wakifanya, na wale hawajatambulika kwa muda mrefu sasa. Nimefurahi sana kwa petition hii ambayo imekuja hapa, na ninaomba sana kwamba ipate kibali hapa kwa komiti ambayo itaenda kufanyia kazi, ili hata wao wapate kupata haki na tuweze kuboresha utalii hapa nchini Kenya kama vile ilivyokuwa mwanzoni. Asante Bwana Speaker.
Committee petition is referred to the Committee of Sports, Culture and Tourism to deal with it as appropriate. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Leader of Majority. Leader of the Majority, Honorable Maure, Deputy Majority Whip.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Majority Leader, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, August 12, 2021. The reports of the Auditor General and the financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 30th June 2019 and the certificates therein. 1. Garissa University, Nairobi Technical Training Institute, Kasarani Technical Vocational College, Technical University of Kenya, PC Kinyanjui Technical Training Institute. Thank you.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Go to the first segment. Took one of those ones. This one. Member for Loima, Honorable Jeremiah Lomukurai. Yeah.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to ask question number 109 of 2021 to be directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Devolution and Assaults. Question number 1, what measures has the Ministry put in place to ensure that food and relief items are kept in stock for emergencies such as drought, famine, and other calamities in the country, particularly in Turkana County? Number 2, Honorable Speaker, when will the Ministry commence distribution of food, of relief food, across the 6 sub-counties of Turkana County, which are currently experiencing acute drought, leading to loss of crops and livestock, with Loima, Turkana West, Turkana South, and Turkana East sub-counties being the most affected? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Will be replied before the Committee on Administration and National Security. Next question is by the member for Kwale, the Honorable Suleika Hassan, who has requested for the question to be deferred, and the request is acceded to. The next question is by the member for Homa Bay Town, the Honorable Kaluma, who has requested that the question be asked on his behalf by the Honorable Odo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand to ask question 283/2021 on behalf of Honorable Peter Kaluma, MP. And the question is directed to the Teacher Service Commission. Number 1, could the Commission provide details of all teachers employed during the last recruitment exercise and explain why no applicant from Homa Bay sub-county were recruited despite being qualified? 2, could the Commission avail the grading criteria set for the employment of teachers and explain why internship was conferred and due wait, yet the opportunity for internship was only available for a few teachers against the very many qualified and interested teachers? Number 3, could the Commission provide the steps taken to ensure that teachers are employed on first to graduate, first to be employed basis? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, asked for a written reply, so the question will be forwarded to the Teacher Service Commission for the same. The next question is by the member for Soy, the Honorable Caleb Kosan. Well, the next is by the member for, the next question is by the member for Kuria East, the Honorable Marwa Maisori, who has requested for deferment. His request has been acceded to. Next question is by the member for West Pokot County, the Honorable Lillian Tomitom. Member for West Pokot, the Honorable Lillian Tomitom. The next question is by the member for Kasarani, the Honorable Masega Kuya.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask the question 303 of 2021 to be replied before the Departmental Committee on Administration.
303 or 304?
304, sorry for that. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide the ownership status of land currently occupied by squatters in Choka, Roy Ward, Mailisaba and Jiro Estate in Jiro Ward, Getwamba in Kasarani Ward, Budalangi in Mweki Ward in Kasarani constituency? Question number 2, could the Cabinet Secretary consider settling the squatters on the said land and issue them with title deeds, considering that they have occupied the land for over 30 years? Thank you.
Question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Lands. The next question is by my member for Kadiani, Honorable Robert Mbui, who has requested for deferment. His request has been acceded to. So we go for a second time. Question by the member for Soy, the Honorable Caleb Kostani. For the second time. Member absent, not desiring to be present. Question is dropped. The next question is by the member for West Pokot, the diminutive Honorable Lillian Tomitom. Member for West Pokot. Does she come? Does she attend Parliament? I haven't seen her in a long time. Why? Well, the member is absent. The member is absent. I don't defer questions unless there's a request. So the member has, I assume that from West Pokot she is able even to read online questions, the business on the order paper. Member has not requested for deferment, therefore the question is dropped. To proceed to the next segment. Request for statements. First request is by the Honorable Oudo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Provisional Standing Order 44.2c, I rise to request for a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security regarding National Campaign Against Drug Abuse Authority on progress made in treatment and rehabilitation on alcohol and drug abuse in the country. Honorable Speaker, according to the African Journal of Alcohol and Drug Abuse, published on NACADA website on 2017, the use of alcohol among people aged 15 to 65 was the major contributor to the burden of substance abuse in Kenya. It was followed by use of tobacco, heart, miraa, and lastly, bang. Data on current use of multiple drugs and substances showed that the prevalence stood at 6% in 2017, with the Coast region having the highest prevalence of current poll drug use at 8.3%, followed by Eastern at 8.2% and Northeastern by 7.8%. Furthermore, findings on substance use disorders dependence show that the country was struggling with an increasing burden of persons who require treatment and rehabilitation. There has been no update on the status of alcohol and drug abuse in the country to date. Honorable Speaker, it's against this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson, the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security, on the following. 1. Could the chairperson provide information on the progress made by NACADA with regard to alcohol and drug abuse in the country? 2. Could the chairperson state the amount of funds that have been allocated to National Campaign Against Drug Abuse through NACADA for the last 20 years of its existence, and how it has been utilized particularly on treatment and rehabilitation of alcohol and drug abuse victims? 3. Could the chairperson explain how many people affected by alcohol and drugs has NACADA helped across access treatment and rehabilitation centers? Number 4, could the chairperson clarify whether NACADA has the power to establish a treatment and rehabilitation center to be run by a multidisciplinary expert committee? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Chair, Administration and National Security, how long do you think you could provide this information? Honorable Mwadi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. All right. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think I should be able to get a response from that. The other department, maybe in 2 weeks.
2 weeks' time? Very well. Honorable Ondo, it's okay?
Honorable Speaker, that's in order. I hope it will be, because the menace of drug abuse is now becoming a national crisis, especially among the young people during this time of COVID pandemic and economic hardships. We need to find a solution to it as soon as yesterday. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. The next request is to the same committee by the member for Kikuyu, Honorable Ishongwa.
None. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 442C, I rise to request a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security concerning the illegal arrest and detention of one Mr. Harun Aydin, a Turkish national and business person. Honorable Speaker, on the 7th August 2021, police officers arrested one Mr. Harun Aydin, a Turkish national, at Wilson Airport in Nairobi upon his arrival from a trip to the Republic of Uganda. He was said to have been part of a delegation that included the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Additionally, he was in possession of a valid 3-year Kenyan work permit issued by the government of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, Mr. Aydin was held in detention and in a state of incommunicado, where he was denied access to his advocates and officials from the Turkish embassy who wanted to ascertain his condition and get clarity on the circumstances that led to his arrest. Mr. Aydin was therefore thereafter purportedly released and allowed to travel out of the country on the 9th of August 2021. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security on the following. 1. What are the circumstances that led to the arrest and detention of Mr. Harun Aydin from Saturday 7th August 2021 to Monday 9th August 2021, being held beyond the 48 hours stipulated in our laws? 2. Why was he denied access to his lawyers, and more importantly, to officials from the Turkish embassy, his country of origin, during this period of his illegal arrest and detention? 3. What specific issues led to Mr. Aydin leaving the country, and was the departure voluntary or not, and why was he us to leave. 4, why was he not charged before a court of law despite being held in detention illegally for over 48 hours in contravention of our own constitution, all international conventions, and the rule of law that governs this country? 5, what has the government done so far to reassure the Turkish government and the Turkish people, who are our first-hand trading partners, with billions of Kenya shillings trade between the two countries, especially in the textile industry, and hundreds of thousands of Kenyans employed directly and indirectly through trade between the two countries? And Honorable Speaker, may I add that more importantly, many members of Parliament this year have been visiting Turkey on training, Honorable Speaker, and I'm aware, Honorable Speaker, even as we speak, there are members of Parliament who could be in Turkey as we speak. And of course, other investors, Honorable Speaker, from around the world. An assurance that they will not be mistreated in Kenya as Mr. Aydin was mistreated by his illegal arrest and detention for a whole weekend, Honorable Speaker. And that, Honorable Speaker, I beg to ask the chairperson to take the matter more seriously beyond the politics that has been made with this issue.
Okay, because that's what you are saying is not in the request.
It is not in the written statement.
No,
I was only imploring on the chair.
Now you will not be able to deal with that which is not in the request. So let Honorable Mwadi tell us how soon.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I may not be able to deal with the issues of MPs visiting Turkey, and that has been happening, not only Turkey, but many other countries where they go for training. And I don't think we need to connect that with what you're asking. But I want to confirm that I have heard you. Tomorrow I'm meeting with the CS. I'll bring it to his attention. And inside 2 weeks, Honorable Speaker, I'll be able to bring that response.
There's nothing, you can't comment. There's no room for comment. There's no room for comment. Let's get to the next request. No. You wanted tomorrow. You wanted tomorrow. You become like IBC, which you wanted us to approve things within. Yes. Yes. You'll be given it.
Honorable Speaker, you know the ranking member for Garissa Township was interrupting you. Probably did not hear what the Honorable Mwadi said, because first he responded to the issue of MPs visiting Turkey, which was not anything that I was asking on their visit. 2, Honorable Speaker, he asserted that he's meeting the CS tomorrow, and he would give a response in 2 weeks, Honorable Speaker. And aware, Honorable Speaker, that in 2 weeks, even without anticipating anything, Honorable Speaker, we might be proceeding on recess. I would implore on the chair to treat this matter, and that's what I was going to add beyond what was written on the written statement, Honorable Chair, that it is something that needs to be taken more seriously than 2 weeks. And if he's meeting the CS tomorrow, there is no reason why the CS cannot, within the stipulated periods that we give them of 7 days, be able to give the country a response, because these are issues that touch on investments and trading between countries, Honorable Speaker, and relations between countries, Honorable Speaker, and therefore it's not a matter that we should take as lightly and as a joke as Honorable Mwadi seems to be perceiving, that it's about members of Parliament traveling in and out of Turkey. I know members of Parliament do travel. Even the good suit I'm wearing, Honorable Speaker, and the nice tie are from Turkey.
Honorable Mwadi, are you joking?
7 days should be adequate.
Honorable Speaker, let me say this, that mentioning the issue of MPs together with the issue of that request was only trying to pull the MPs into that matter. What I said, and I want to repeat for avoidance of doubt, is that MPs travel to Turkey and any other country for training as it has been routine. And I rested that matter there. Then I came and I said, tomorrow I'm meeting the CS and I'll bring it to the attention of CS. But there is a way that this communication is done from here to the executive. But I said within 2 weeks, I'll be able to bring a response. That, I think, should suffice. And there is no joke in saying within 2 weeks. I've just said in 2 weeks, I'm bringing the issue of Nakada, which is even more critical. And there wasn't any fuss about it. But in 2 weeks, inside 2 weeks, or within 2 weeks, I'll be able to respond. And I think that is standard, because I don't want to go and the CS is not able to answer, and then I'm here on the floor looking like I didn't know what I was saying.
Very well. I think that should suffice. Within 2 weeks. Provision of counseling. Request by the Honorable Masara, member for Suna West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 42C, I rise to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security regarding the provision of counseling and psychosocial support services to the police officers. Honorable Speaker, on 1st September 2020, the Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Interior and Coordination of National Government, while appearing before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security on a statement I requested on police reforms, outlines the various measures put in place to reform the police organization, which have been under institutional, legislative, policy thematic areas. Among the measures outlined by the ministry included the development of counseling policy to provide the framework for undertaking psychosocial support and counseling services to the police officers, establishment of Directorate of Chaplaincy, counseling and social support to oversee the services, and establish a pilot counseling and rehabilitation center in Ruaraka, Nairobi. Mr. Honorable Speaker, unfortunately, the measures as outlined by the Cabinet Secretary are yet to be rolled out, and many police officers continue to suffer. This, among others, had led to numerous incidences of suicide, murder, desertions of duties, drunkenness. It is against this background that I request for statement from the chairperson, Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. In the statement, the chairperson should address the following. 1, why the ministry is taking inordinately long to implement measures to address psychosocial support and counseling in the police service as outlined by the Cabinet Secretary on 1st September 2020. 2, when will the recently established counseling and rehabilitation center, which was to be located in Ruaraka, Nairobi, be made operational, and are there plans to establish more such centers across the country? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair Mwadi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and the Honorable Member is a member of the committee. And this morning we had commissioners from National Police Service Commission, and those were the issues that we were discussing, and we are meeting them again on 25th of this month. So I'll be able to bring the response, and he'll be part of that committee when we meet, but I'll be able to bring that in 2 weeks.
Masara, is that okay?
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate what my able chairman has mentioned, but being you are living in this country, the matter in question is a time bomb for this country. We don't know when the OCS of your police station will decide to shoot you or shoot himself. We don't know when our bodyguard will decide to shoot themselves or shoot us. So the earlier we do it, Mr. Speaker, not only for police officers, Mr. Speaker, the matter in question is critical to this country.
But the question, the statement you have requested if I listen to you correctly, requires very serious introspection. That it is not the thing that you are going to rush and get, unless you want to be given some wishy-washy stuff. You have raised some very weighty matter, Honorable Masara, and indeed I need to congratulate you for raising that matter. It's a matter of great concern, and I think it would be best, now that you're also a member of that committee, actually you should assist in making sure that the response that comes here is something that makes, makes sense to the House and to you. I don't know whether you want it to be done also on Monday. Or,
no, Mr. Speaker, my concerns are very clear. You remember, I raised such a statement early last year, 2020, and the response was given in September 20th. Last year.
You are a member of that committee, Honorable
Yes,
Masara.
but 1 year down the line, Mr. Speaker, nothing is happening. That's my worry.
Then you must be asleep also in the committee. If you wanted the answer from the same committee. What are you doing in the committee if you cannot raise it there in the committee?
Mr. Speaker, I may agree with you.
Even equity doesn't help the indolent.
Mr. Speaker, I may agree with you if sleeping is asking question, because I don't have the capacity to force the CS and the Commission to act. But I have the capacity to ask the question and seek for answers on behalf of this, our great nation. Mr. Speaker, if you ask my chairman, I'm a very active member of that committee. But being there does not force the CS to give me answers sufficiently, because he gave in September, but up to now, we have not seen those centers being rolled down. Mr. Speaker, I don't see if that is a crime to push for things to be done. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I think you need to raise that elsewhere, that matter now, apparently, because it's, if it is in your committee and you sit there and the CS comes and you don't. Honorable Mwathi.
Honorable Speaker, I share the concerns of the Honorable Member. But truth be told, this morning, we met the Chair, National Police Service Commission, plus some commissioners. He was part of the decision makers, that is the committee members, that we meet with that commission over the same issue on 25th of August, which is even less than 2 weeks. He will be in that meeting. All those issues that he has raised is what we wanted to discuss today. Only that the IG police and the DIG were not there, and we set another date so that they can come, because they are the implementers of the decision that will be made by the commission and the advice that will be given by the committee. I don't know whether we can do it faster than that. And he has actually picked most of those issues that we were to discuss today and in that request for statement. So I think it should suffice that you accept that I'll give it in 2 weeks, but you might get the answer firsthand even before 2 weeks on 25th in the committee.
Or even in the committee. Yes. Because this is provision of counseling and psychosocial support services. And a very important thing, Honorable Masara. And I think it can't be done overnight, unless you just, if you are worried about being shot by your bodyguard, just relieve him of his duties.
Chairman, actually, I was doing it on behalf of 45 million Kenyans, but Chairman, Mr. Speaker, I'll go as per the advice of my able chairman. Thank you.
Very well. The next two requests at the request of the members, the Honorable Yusuf Hassan, member for Kamukunji, who was to seek a statement on the status of the United States troops within the Kenyan territory, is requested for his deferment on account of his inability. Then the other request is by the Honorable John Juguna Wanjiku, member for Kiambaa, on the construction of the Nairobi, it says Southern Bypass. He has indicated that he is unable to be present and requested for deferment. The two requests have been acceded to, and therefore they are deferred. Yeah. Leader of Majority, the statement. And honour members, as the Leader of Majority reads out the statement on behalf of the House Business Committee, indicating what business is coming up next week. Just yesterday, is a member who says that he is not aware, he has never heard that the issue of which questions are to be answered being raised. That we have done for the longest time. So, if members really care to listen, they would know that on Thursday, the Leader Majority always gives indication as to what business will be there on Tuesday and what questions, what cabinet secretaries will be appearing to answer which questions and asked by who. So please, I don't want to name the particular member because it's not in the interest of the House for everyone to. But I'm just saying this because it was raised that there's a member who has never known that ever happens. So please listen, Leader of Majority.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 44-2A, I rise to give the following statement on behalf of the House Business Committee, which met on Tuesday, 10th of August 2021, to prioritize the business for consideration. Honourable Speaker, let me take this opportunity first of all to commend the committees for expediting the business that had been pending before them during the recent recess period. And I know that was a rather involving task, but I've seen quite a number of the reports that have been tabled, which is a good indicator that we are cleaning up on all the outstanding business. Honourable Speaker, on Tuesday next week, the following business has been scheduled for consideration. And one, at the Committee of the Whole House, we'll be looking at the National Hospital Insurance Fund Amendment Bill of 2021, subject to its completion this afternoon. The Foreign Service Bill, which of 2021, which has already gone to the second reading, and the Waqf Bill of 2019. Then, at the second reading, we will also be looking at the continuation of debate on the Irrigation Amendment Bill of 2021, the Health Laws Amendment Bill 2021, and the National Cohesion and Peace Building Bill, which is the Senate Bill number 35 of 2018. Honourable Speaker, in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 42A, 5 and 6, I wish to convey that the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury and Planning is scheduled to appear before the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning on Thursday, the 19th of August 2021, to respond to two questions. Question number 214 of 2021 by the Honourable Ronald Tonui, MP, regarding the recent changes to the Civil Servants Pension Scheme, who are entitled and how the benefits are calculated. And second question, number 255 of 2021 by the Honourable David Ochieng, MP, on number of privatizations that have been conducted since the establishment of the Privatization Commission and the privatization processes of National Bank and the state-owned sugar factories. Honourable Speaker, the House Business Committee will reconvene on Tuesday, the 17th of August 2021 to schedule the business for the rest of the week. I now wish to lay this statement on the table of the House.
Honourable Duale, what is the point of order?
Speaker, nothing much. Speaker, I want to thank the Leader of Majority. Mr. Speaker, Wednesday morning is a session for private members' bill. And Mr. Speaker, we're having a problem because some of our bills are at the bottom. And then when in the morning we come here, we are told the members who had the previous bills either are not prepared or they have no seconder. So yesterday, I was forced to hurriedly prepare myself. So, Mr. Speaker, I really want the clerk's office, to notify those of us who are ready to move their private members' bill like mine, and I even with Honourable Chris Omalwa as my seconder. We were here the whole of yesterday. So there are some members, either they are out on trips or they're in the constituencies. I think they should liaise with the clerk's office or the table office or with the Leader of Majority in advance and say we are not coming. So that before Monday, when the order paper is being prepared, or Tuesday, our staff know your availability. Speaker, I really want you to give that direction.
Well, I think the problem is maybe the problem is actually the members, because by I think the close of business tomorrow, the clerk's office will have given an indication of what business is coming up on Tuesday, and a tentative indicative notices of possible businesses on Wednesday, particularly private members' businesses. And indeed, among our members, the reason why we have pushed the committee so hard to prepare the reports is so that we could give priority to private members' businesses. So if your business appears, and either you think you are held out there in the village and you can't make it, just notify the clerk's office that you are not available, so that another member can take the other business can then move up. And part of the reason has been because we didn't want to appear like there is anybody who is being given preferential treatment. That's why we have been lining them up. So please, if you read, but it is important first of all to read the clerk's message notification on it's called the Bunge something, Bunge Info. For those of you who use of course, the only ones who will be having difficulties are the ones with the Mulika Mwizi. I don't know whether it shows. It shows even Mulika Mwizi. So everybody then should be. So it's like the one Honorable Koloshi is used. So please let everybody read that. And if your business is appearing and you are not available or you are not ready, there's no problem in you not being ready and saying so. So that then the other person, the next person can be notified by the clerk's office and they will prepare, as Honorable Dwele has just said. So I mean, this is just a matter of decorum and helping us to be better, so that everybody is able to plan. And there are very many private members' businesses, bills which are pending. Honorable Pukose.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, a few weeks ago you gave the Committee on Health on the bill on Kenya Food and Drug Authority that they present a progressive report. Last week you also talked to the chair to expedite and bring the report. I've been meeting them in the corridors. They tell me the report is ready, but there was a change of clerk. So I think that there were changes in terms of clerks. So I think, Honorable Speaker, I would really appreciate if the report can be tabled so that my bill can move forward, because it is a bill that has stayed long. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, just not on a very serious matter, but you know, when members are not in the House, I think they seek your permission. I'm seeing the mainstream ODM is missing on the other side, except maybe the outsiders of ODM, those outsiders. But the mainstream ODM guys are missing. I don't know where, after the Mombasa trip, I don't know whether they have sought your permission or what is happening to be absent, because I see Honorable Unda is carrying the hand, but it's not mainstream ODM. So, and Honorable Atandi is also not mainstream ODM. But the mainstream ODM, they are not there. These are peripheral.
Who are mainstream and who are peripheral members of? Honorable Udo, you are peripheral.
Before I go to that, Honorable Speaker, I just want to raise a point of concern. On 1st July, Honorable Speaker, I rose here to ask for a request for a statement to the Departmental Committee of Finance and National Planning concerning Kenya Transport and Logistics Network. As typical, we were given 2 weeks, and I would suppose, fine, we went for a short recess, I would suppose by now, Honorable Speaker, the 2 weeks has lapsed. Unfortunately, I don't see the chair, but I had seen the vice chair of the committee. I hope somebody will shed light when I'm likely to get that answer. Second, Honorable Speaker, sometimes in March, I asked also a question to the Transport Committee concerning the airstrip in Funyula constituency called Papindege. Up to now, I have never received an answer, because the last time I appeared before the committee, they told me there had been a mix-up. The question was not referred to the ministry to provide an answer. That needs to be concluded before probably we break for another short recess, or we get into the murky field of business. Finally, Honorable Speaker, ODM, unlike other parties, We have no fringe members. We only have one ODM members. As you are aware, Honorable Speaker, our colleague, Honorable Kajwang, and Senator Kajwang lost her parent. The burial is tomorrow. So naturally, out of being compassionate to our colleague, number of our colleagues have already traveled. Some of us will travel tomorrow because we could not have left the house deserted, because some of us are permanent features of this house. Our absence is always felt. That's why we remain. So there's basically nothing untoward about it. Most of us have traveled to console with our colleague. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Ishongwa, but the issue by the Honorable Oudo, where is the Honorable, now of course the Honorable Anga
is mainstream.
She is not in.
She is mainstream.
Then the Honorable Waihenya.
Atandi is
peripheral.
It looks like there's nobody who can respond to this. Honorable Udo.
Honorable Ihenya.
Kindly remind me on Tuesday. I want you to raise that matter again when they are present.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Shongwa.
Mike, thank you, Honorable Speaker, and it's good, Honorable Speaker. But I thought just further to what Honorable Udo is asking, I also did raise on request a statement from the chair. Chair, I can see here the Honorable Kareke, Chair for Environment, on the implementation of the Kikuyu Water and Sewer project. Honorable Chair, as Honorable Udo is saying, we are always told within 2 weeks, and I think Honorable Udo has put it very well, the customary 2 weeks. And the Chair Environment is here, but since then, Honorable Chair, I have not been invited to the committee. They have never responded to the request for statement, Honorable Chair, and the matter that I was asking, Honorable Speaker, still persists. And as much as you may understand why our colleagues in ODM are not there, Honorable Chair, my second point of order was in relation to business, which in my thinking, Honorable Chair, I thought was not properly before this House, today being a government day, but I was told this is a party-sponsored motion, the motion appearing as motion number 10, Honorable Speaker. And now that the mainstream ODM seems not to be in the House, and they are the mainstream minority party since after the breakup of NASA and dissolution and subsequent divorce of the NASA parties, Honorable Chair, Speaker, I wanted your guidance, Honorable Speaker, because when I also look at the substance of this motion, Honorable Speaker, it is a motion that, besides being sponsored by the minority party, Honorable Speaker, touches on budgetary matters, and aware, Honorable Speaker, that we have just finished the appropriation process. I don't know whether this motion was very well thought out, Honorable Speaker, and maybe I thought with the minority party being absent, maybe we could consider moving on to more important business to deal with bills, Honorable Speaker, like the irrigation amendment bill, Honorable Speaker, and the health laws amendment bill that are very critical, so that we don't spend time on these motions with the members not being there. And of course, raising issues that touch on budgetary matters. And of course, we have just gone through the budget process until last month, finished even with the finance bill. Honorable Speaker, we may talk a lot on the motion, Honorable Speaker, but until the issues being raised relate to COVID, Honorable Speaker. And COVID, Honorable Speaker, as much as it may go on,
we are not yet there.
That's why I wanted your guidance, Honorable Speaker, whether, without anticipating debate, Honorable Speaker, I was just asking for your guidance, whether now in the absence of the minority party, we would consider to drop this motion. Manzo is in the peripherals of the dead NASA. The mainstream ODM, Honorable Speaker, as you have been told, is not in the House today.
No, members, that's not. We are not yet there. That issue will be raised when we get to the business, so that the explanation about it could be given. Maybe we could. This issue of the Honorable Pukose on his bill, I think, is now becoming too much. Leader majority. and the chair of health appears. You know, I think the best thing is that when the House Business Committee sits on Tuesday, it is to prioritize this business, that bill, we'll put it in the other paper. And just to remind committees that a committee cannot sit on a bill that has been published, and as a consequence, they deny the mover the right to have it debated in the House, and the House to make a decision one way or other. So now that this appears to be, I think it's not right. It will be dealt with, Honorable Focus. We'll have it put in the other paper. The clerk to remind to House Business Committee. Honorable Kareke, maybe we could allow the Honorable Kareke to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there's an issue which has been raised by the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah on the settlement is short a while back. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to confirm that I've been in consultation with the Honorable Member around 3 weeks ago, and we decided to defer the issue because it was not available, and we have committed to engage the issue together with the one which was sought yesterday, next week on Tuesday, so that we can be able to have a very conclusive answer to the same, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Well, honour members, before we move to the next order, allow me to indicate that there's a message that I need to present to the House. This being message number 6 of 2021, message from the President on the nomination of persons to the office of member of the Teacher Service Commission, in brackets TSC. Honourable members, pursuant to the Professional Standing Order 42, I wish to convey a message which was received in my office today, Thursday, 12th of August 2021, from His Excellency the President, relating to the nomination of persons for appointment to the offices of member of the Teacher Service Commission. Honourable members, the message conveys that in accordance with the provisions of Article 250, Clause 2, Paragraph B of the Constitution, and the procedure set out in Section 8 of the Teacher Service Commission Act of 2012, as read together with Sections 3 and 5 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011, His Excellency the President, having received the report of the selection panel appointed via the Gazette Notice number 6205 of 2021, has nominated the following persons for appointment as members of the Teacher Service Commission. 1. Dr. Nicodemus Ojuma Anyang. 2. Ms. Christine K. Kahidi. 3. Ms. Sharon Jelagat Kisire. 4. Ms. Anseta G. Wafuho. And 5. Mr. Salesa Adano Abudo. In this regard, His Excellency the President now seeks the approval of the nominations by this House, of the nominees by this House. Honourable members, Sections 7 and 8 of the Teacher Service Commission Act number 20 of 2012 provides as follows, and I read: 7. The President shall, within 7 days of receipt of the names forwarded under subsection 6, nominate 1 person and 8 others for appointment as chairperson and members of the Commission, and forward the names to the National Assembly for approval. 8. The National Assembly shall, within 21 days of its sitting, consider each nomination received under subsection 7 and approve or reject any of them. Close the quotes. In this regard, honourable members, pursuant to the Professional Standing Order 45, I hereby refer the message together with the report of the selection panel as well as the curriculum vitae and other testimonials of the nominees to the Departmental Committee on Education and Research for consideration. Honourable members, conscious of the central role of the Commission in the education sector and noting the unprecedented nature of the early learning and basic education calendar for the years 2020, 2021, and 2022, His Excellency the President has requested the National Assembly to consider the nominees on a priority basis. To this end, honourable members, noting that the House will proceed on its normal long recess from the 20th of August 2021 in accordance with its published calendar. The committee should expeditiously notify the nominees and the general public of the time and place for holding the approval hearings, and thereafter, upon conclusion of the hearings and adoption of its reports, submit the same to enable the House to consider the matter within the statutory timelines. I thank you, members. Next.
Order number 8, motion. Procurement of external audit services for the Office of the Auditor General for the financial years 2018-2019 and 2019-2020. Question to be put.
Honour members. Debate on this motion was concluded yesterday, and what remained was a question to be put, which I hereby do. To opinion, say nay. The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, the National Assembly Bill number 21 of 2021, second reading.
How many people have contributed? There's nobody who was on the floor, but if I look at the request, there is the Honorable Muchangi, member for Runyeges. But
thank you.
Very well, proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this very important bill. Mr. Speaker, matters to do with health are very important matters, and I have said before in this House that a healthy nation is a wealthy nation. Mr. Speaker, one thing that stands out whenever NHIF is mentioned is its affordability. Mr. Speaker, only around 20% of Kenyans are covered with NHIF. That means over 80% of Kenyans still remain unregistered with NHIF. So the discussion about NHIF is a very important one, and I believe, Mr. Speaker, majority of Kenyans, since when the contributions were raised to 500, were completely unable to pay the amount. So it means, Mr. Speaker, that we must make it affordable for the majority of Kenyans who cannot afford the 500 Kenya shillings, Mr. Speaker. Another thing that stands out very well concerning NHIF, Mr. Speaker, a state officer wants a salary of around 1 million Kenya shillings, pays only around 1,800 Kenya shillings for NHIF, while an ordinary citizen who doesn't have a job is required to pay 500 Kenya shillings. Looking at those figures, Mr. Speaker, there is no correlation. So I think going forward, Mr. Speaker, we have got to consider a way of ensuring that those who earn more pay more for NHIF, while those who cannot afford to pay NHIF because of lack of 500 Kenya shillings, the amount is reduced by half to maybe 250 or 300 Kenya shillings, so that we can make it affordable for all people who can who really want to be enlisted within HIF. Mr. Speaker, I also support the idea of allowing the people under the social protection scheme to benefit from this NHIF. Let government pay NHIF for them, because majority of them are old people who don't earn a living, and they fall sick every now and then, and they require medical attention from time to time. That includes, Mr. Speaker, the disabled Kenyans. We have so many of them across the country. Most of them cannot earn anything. So it is very important, Mr. Speaker, if we can allow the people who live with the disabilities to benefit from a health cover that will enable them to access medical services, Mr. Speaker. So with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support this amendment. Thank you.
If you have contributed, and because I'm just following the names as they are. Let me just indicate, Honorable Amin, have you contributed?
I want to speak. Thank you. Honorable Speaker, thank you for giving me an opportunity to articulate and to contribute on this NHIF Amendment Bill of 2021. Honorable Speaker, universal health care is a critical and a constitutional provision which should be provided to every citizen of this country, and is something and a policy that has been mooted by His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, so that each and every Kenyan can be able to access affordable health care for its citizens. Honorable Speaker, this has been, the attainment of universal health care has been a great challenge for the ordinary Kenyans and even for the well-off Kenyans. So the fact that there's a policy and a bill that is being developed with a concept to have every Kenyan covered, a health scheme covering each and every individual in this country, is a prudent and a very important conceptualization of this bill. Honorable Speaker, this bill emphasizes two critical things. It emphasizes the matching grants which should be provided for by the employer, that the employer contributes an equal amount of money which should be provided for also by the contributor, so that there is an ample coverage for all those that are working with gainful employment in this sector. Honorable Speaker, this NHIF fund bill for 2021 has not emphasized and is not able to cover for the nearly 8 million or 15 million Kenyans who are not employed gainfully, particularly those in the small sectors, those which are unemployed, have not been able to give provisions for. Honorable Speaker, it is our feeling and is our recommendation that this universal health care should be rolling out not only for those who have been employed and the employer contributing a matching grant, but the entire country and the entire citizens of this country should be covered by this bill. So if there is a loophole in this bill, there should be a provision for those ones that have not been covered by the employer should have an access for it. So there should be an amendment and improvement on this bill in the third reading, so that each and every Kenyan can be able to access the universal health care which is emphasized in this bill. One critical good component also on this bill is the fact that all NHIF is also going to improve and make an infrastructure improvement into all the health sectors. They're able to buy the facilities, the x-rays, and all those infrastructure improvements so that they can be able to provide diagnostic and surgery equipment on all the health sector, on all the health facilities that have been accredited by NHIF. That is a critical way of ensuring that the health facilities that have been accredited by the NHIF Act through the NHIF is happening and is able to give ample and good medical care for those individuals that are able to access this facility. Honorable Speaker,
One thing that has also not been captured is that the county referral hospitals, all the county referral hospitals, despite being accredited to NHIF, is not having adequate facilities to cater for surgery, to cater for laboratory, improved laboratory. So one thing that should be emphasized is that all county referral hospitals, which should still be able to be credited by the NHIF bill, should have all the requirements as desired for all the medical attention. Currently, what we have is health facilities in the referral hospital in the counties which do not have the requisite equipment. It does not have the requisite medical attention. At times, it may not even have a qualified medical practitioners to give the adequate health requirement of its system. So this bill should also emphasize and make sure that the county referral hospitals are adequately equipped so that they can be able to provide the intended universal health care for its system. Honorable Speaker, great majority of Kenyans, nearly 20 million Kenyans are unemployed, and the small sector. There should be a subsidized contribution which should be provided for to its system, particularly at this lower level and unemployed. One other thing the government has also been rolling out is the fact that they're able to provide the vulnerable people are able to access. But one thing that has not been issued is that they have not been able to apportion the medical fund, the NHIF contribution. So if the government is also giving the vulnerable, the elderly, if they are giving food, a certain amount of stipend, then there should be an equal contribution for the same in terms of the health care. Because if you provide food and you still don't provide a medical health care, then it does not make any sense. It's only properly fed system that can be able to get a good health care for that matter. So what we're always suggesting is that those that are getting the support should also be having a medical cover for the same, and the government should be able to make a contribution for the same. Honorable Speaker, one other thing that the government has also rolled out, school children, particularly in secondary schools, to get a certain amount of NHIF, but that one does not give the same cover to the family member. So every child who is in secondary school who is getting a NHIF cover from the government should also have their families covered through this program. So I'm saying that this program, as much as it's only working for those who have been employed and the employer to make a significant contribution, it should be in totality for all citizens of this country. Thank you very much. I support the amendment.
Member for Kitui West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me take this opportunity to say that I support this NHIF amendment bill. But let me start by saying that most Kenyans are actually neither aware of the NHIF, neither can they afford to pay for NHIF premiums. So this goes for the NHIF to actually popularize and also make Kenyans aware of what NHIF offers, because there are very many who are not aware about NHIF. And the other thing about NHIF is that some hospitals, small hospitals like small mission hospitals, especially during this corona period, the NHIF has paralyzed the activities of these hospitals. And this is by not reimbursing the hospitals after they take the NHIF cover. And I'm aware of a mission hospital in my constituency, Mudale Mission Hospital, which has really been treating so many people by using the NHIF cards, but the insurance has not been able to reimburse, and therefore this has rendered the mission hospital really suffer so much, and the people are not getting the treatment as they ought to, because most of the times there's no medicine because NHIF has not reimbursed them. This bill also proposes for punitive measures for late payment to the fund. Mr. Speaker, I think this should be done for institutions which give late payment to the fund. Mandatory since the NHIF Act of 1998, which states that an ordinary resident of Kenya, whether salaried or self-employed, shall be liable as a contributor to the fund. But in practice, NHIF membership for informal sector workers only constitutes 83% of Kenyans' workforce, but has remained voluntary. So for the informal sector, it has not been mandatory. But mandatory NHIF coverage would actually raise revenues for UHC and improve repayment of their financial protection. Because currently only 20% of Kenyans have any form of health insurance coverage, with only 85% of them covered by NHIF. So coverage among the formal sector is near universal compared to 15% coverage among the informal sector. So that's why there should be a lot of marketing and also awareness to the informal sector so that they can join, be members of NHIF. The other problem which is there with NHIF is that when you join, you are supposed to wait for 6 months before before you actually get the cover. And if you delay in payment, you also have to wait for 6 months after the payment to the fund. And that period of 6 months is too long, especially for the sick people. So the waiting period should be reduced from 6 months to even no waiting period, so that people can benefit from this fund. Then this bill also proposes for change on how NHIF pays out. Institutions where clients have both private insurance and NHIF, private insurance providers are required to first exhaust their coverage before NHIF pays the outstanding amounts, subject to the funds being limited. So this is an interesting twist and a reversal of the current practice. When NHIF expanded the benefit package in 2016 to cover outpatient surgeries, radiology, and other services, private insurance companies quickly saw an opportunity. And they stipulated that NHIF act as a primary insurer for co-insured members, therefore bearing the biggest component of medical bills. In many ways, NHIF funds were used to subsidize private insurance. So, Mr. Speaker, this NHIF is a very important insurance hospital, for the sick people, but the coverage is so low. So we should have a way of covering more Kenyans and especially those ones who are they're old and are sickly, should be treated freely and covered freely by NHIF, so that we improve our health sector and coverage of the people, especially during this time of COVID, where the private insurance is not even covering COVID-19. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I support the amendments.
Honorable Kolosh.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I support the bill, although I have some reservations. And I must admit that I used to work with the National Hospital Insurance Fund. Honorable Speaker, public insurance is such that the healthy should pay for the sick, and of course the rich should pay for the poor. That is how insurance is, some of the principles of insurance. So the fact that contributions are not necessarily uniform and are pegged on the ability to pay by the individual is very important for us to consider. Number two, Honorable Speaker, the elements of corruption in terms of facilities and hospitals working with corrupt individuals within the National Hospital Insurance Fund is increasingly becoming an issue on the basis of course, resources at the fund. Honorable Speaker, when hospitals are accredited by the NHIF, hospitals tend to misuse that opportunity by giving opportunities to people who are not supposed to be beneficiaries, in the sense that cards are used by relatives and friends of people who should be the holders and the people who paid for it. So we must seal such loopholes. And the issue of giving the NHIF board serious powers to determine the beneficiaries is also we must set checks and balances for the boards, for the hospital board, so that they don't get away with some of the punitive measures like penalties on late contributors, people with this COVID and the economic situation in the country. The self-employed, the people who are called self-employed and who pay on their own and contribute have difficulties at this moment in time because of the situation in the economy. They cannot contribute. So these penalties must be waived in the case that one is sick, is in hospital for a long time, he can't pay, or they can't find an employment or a source of income. These measures should be, of course, checked highly. The right beneficiaries, because you see, when an insurer benefits someone who doesn't pay for, the thing that is becoming very common is that the beneficiary should be the one paying for the services. Secondly, if the situations in the public hospitals are the way they are today, then it is useless to collect such revenues and even expect universal health care. Before we talk about the insurance, we must talk about the services provided at the public hospitals. Because what is it that our county referral hospitals can offer to patients covered by the NHIF or otherwise that are needed today? They don't have the X-ray machines, they don't have the, of course, the machine and capacity required, and of course they are the ones that are available in most of the areas and counties where we come from. Of course, there are small private health providers that are coming up, but the public hospitals, where at the sub-county level or the county referral hospitals, are in a very dire need. So even when you say we are going to insure and provide services in hospitals that have nothing, then it means it is just beating the purpose. It's not meeting the purpose. Because I worked there and I know how the individuals at the board can be, this issue of giving sweeping powers to the National Hospital Insurance Fund board is going to have it's going to be counterproductive. These individuals must be checked. We know the corruption history. Of course, we know the 30 million spent in a day on some women meeting here when the Honorable Charity Ngilu was the minister. And of course, we also know when the CEO was fired, because in 1 year we saved 3 billion as surplus. And when government and the people with influence wanted to eat that money and he resisted, the next morning he found himself on the streets. So it is important that we seal all the loopholes, especially whether government control and individuals who are nominated by the executive. Because, Honorable Speaker, before I became a member of parliament, I thought members of parliament can do a lot, and of course, when I see situations not going the right way, I was wondering what our MPs are doing. When I came here and I have learned that most of the MPs run about, follow the executive and are not here to represent. Seriously, I have found out interests and individual interests overtake the national interest. And people here might not, although elected to represent the people, of course have a lot of other interests. So, Honorable Speaker, I support and I urge that we do changes on the powers, serious powers given to the board.
The Honorable Kolosh, your contribution seems to have attracted the ire of the member for Kikuyu. Let us hear his point of order.
Chair, Honorable Speaker, I am rising on a point of order in relation to what the Honorable Kolosh has said, that before he became a member of parliament, he would wonder. But since becoming a member of parliament, he has since discovered that there are members of parliament in this house who represent other interests other than the people they represent, and who follow orders from the executive. Maybe it is only be beneficial to Kenyans to name those particular members who represent other interests other than those people who have elected them, or those who are directed by the executive. Because, Honorable Speaker, I am seated here, and if the people of Kikuyu heard that I am following orders from the executive, especially this executive, Honorable Speaker, I may not be re-elected next year, Honorable Speaker, because they expect me to be here to represent them. Therefore, it would rather be unfair for the Honorable Kolosh to say generally that there are many members of parliament. He should either substantiate or withdraw that statement, Honorable Speaker.
The honorable member for Kikuyu is absolutely right. The Honorable Kolosh.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Just hold on. You cannot issue a sweeping statement alleging that members in this House do not represent the constituencies that they were elected to represent. So you may have to substantiate. You will have to substantiate or withdraw. Give him the mic.
As I was a way of substantiating the same. The Honorable Member for Kikuyu knows that after the elections of 2017, it is not the members of the Budget Committee that elected him as the chair. Neither it's not the members of the Budget Committee that removed him as a chair. So this is where the controls of the executives are coming. And he knows where I'm referring to. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Kolosh. But anyway, honorable members, I wish to give this opportunity to the member for Georgia. The member for Georgia, the Honorable Koimburi George. I think this will be your maiden speech, your maiden opportunity to make a contribution.
Contribution.
Yes, so you will make your contribution and you will not be interrupted as you make your contribution. Proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me take this opportunity to support this bill. It's a very important bill to our country, a healthy bill. Honorable Speaker, I know in our country we have those old people and also the people living with a disability. And these 500 shillings for NHIF card is very expensive for them. They cannot able to pay these 500 per month. And also remember, in our country or in our dispensary, we don't have medicines for these old people and the people living with a disability. Honorable Speaker, in my constituency, Juja constituency, our dispensary, like Gashororo dispensary, like Kwamundia, also Adi dispensary, we don't have medicines, and also we don't have nurse to serve those people. Honorable Speaker, I would urge the government, if possible, as we know, all of us, the health is already devolved according to the Constitution, and in our government, in our county government, Kiambu County, they don't give us those services in our hospitals and in our dispensaries. Honorable Speaker, I would urge this government to make sure that the county government that we have in our country are doing their work. Failures to that, we are going to amend this bill to make sure in our constitution the health facilities should be given to the national government. For those few remarks, I support the bill. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The member for Kikuyu.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to support this bill, but with a few reservations, Honorable Speaker. And of course, Honorable Speaker, one of the things that I'm usually very skeptical about is when government has an overbearing hand, and when we use legislation to overbear on the people, Honorable Speaker. Particularly the amendment to the NHIF Act, the clause 11 of the bill that envisages to make it compulsory that a person who has attained the age of 18 years and is not a beneficiary shall register as a member of the fund. Honorable Speaker, if you read subsection 2 of that clause, it says that the minister may, in consultation with the board, make regulations for the better carrying out of subsection 1. Honorable Speaker, this to me is very risky, because you are saying that you make it mandatory for every Kenyan who has attained the age of 18 years to become a member of NHIF. That registration may or may not include, depending on what regulations will be prescribed under subsection 2, may involve people paying. And of course, you cannot be a member of a fund, NHIF, where you are expected to benefit from healthcare facilities, Honorable Speaker, and not pay. But we must ask ourselves, when we ask Kenyans who are 18 years and above, Honorable Speaker, and make it compulsory for them to be members of the fund, and probably be charged a fee, be levied a fee, and of course you can see the penalties that are coming with these amendments. Also, if you look at the other clauses, the enhancing penalties be to employers and contributors, Honorable Speaker, then we'll be making it very punitive to the millions of young Kenyans who we have not provided jobs for, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, before we make it mandatory for people to join the fund, then it must be mandatory first for the government to ensure that those people are in gainful employment where they are earning a living and are earning an income for them to be able to contribute to the fund, Honorable Speaker. 2, Honorable Speaker, if you look at clause number 24, Honorable Speaker, the other clause that I have very serious reservations on. Honorable Speaker, in the Nyayo days, in the old dark days of the KANU regime, Honorable Speaker, what used to happen was to exempt state corporations from provisions of the State Corporations Act and use those state corporations as avenues to loot public coffers, Honorable Speaker. I am afraid, Honorable Speaker, that today, when we are increasingly going back to those dark days, where we have an executive that is overbearing on the people, on the legislature, and even attempting now to overbear on the judiciary, Honorable Speaker, that the same attempts are being made now, not through exemption from the State Corporations Act, as much as you saw with the aviation bill, Honorable Speaker, attempts to exempt state corporations like KEA from the provisions of State Corporations Act. But now we are seeing under this clause 24, we are introducing new ways, Honorable Speaker, of introducing...
The Honorable Ishungwa, your submissions are good, but the aviation bill, I'm aware that it has not come to this floor yet. Yes.
Of course, Honorable Speaker, if you listen to me clearly, I was giving it as an example of what the attempts by the executive to use exemptions to the State Corporations Act, like was done in the old KANU days, Honorable Speaker, but probably is being tutored by the KANU regime. Maybe that is why you see this inclination. Honorable Speaker, I was speaking to clause 24, which is proposing to amend section 34 of the Act to mandate the NHIF board to invest in the procurement and acquisition of essential medical equipment and supportive infrastructure to empanel on contracted healthcare providers, Honorable Speaker. The people who are empaneled by NHIF, Honorable Speaker, or who are contracted as service provided by NHIF are both public and private hospitals or healthcare providers, Honorable Speaker. If we are giving the board now mandate to be able to procure healthcare equipment, Honorable Speaker, not healthcare for a hospital that is being managed by that NHIF board. And you remember, Honorable Speaker, some time back, the NHIF board was involved in some scandal of land that was where they were to build a NHIF referral hospital in Karen, which today, Honorable Speaker, despite spending billions, has never been built. But consultants walked away with billions of shillings, Honorable Speaker. I'm therefore very skeptical when you now tell me that NHIF that could not invest in a referral hospital, Honorable Speaker, a referral hospital that an institution like Kenyatta University was able to invest in and build a referral hospital in less than, in a period of about 3 to 4 years, a referral hospital that has been very critical now during this COVID time to help ease the congestion in Kenyatta and many of our private other hospitals, and a very good hospital, Honorable Speaker. But NHIF had that dream over 10, 15 years ago. It has never come to fruition, Honorable Speaker. It is this same NHIF, Honorable Speaker, that you are now mandating to now procure healthcare equipment. Is it the same healthcare equipment, Honorable Speaker, that we attempted to procure through the infamous MES or the Managed Equipment Services program that came into being in 2014, 2015, Honorable Speaker? If that is what we are to learn from, Honorable Speaker, then we must be cautious. If in this House we today pass legislation to mandate NHIF to go ahead now and procure more equipment, while we have the MES equipment that is lying in our sub-county and county referral hospitals, not in use, Honorable Speaker. And we are paying billions, forcing our county government to pay billions every year to providers of this least equipment, Honorable Speaker, and equipment that is not helping the people. And now we want to use NHIF to squander more public resources by probably getting the same tenderpreneurs who are involved in the MES program, Honorable Speaker, to now procure through NHIF. The same tenderpreneurs, Honorable Speaker, you can bet, Honorable Speaker, that the same tenderpreneurs who are involved in the MES scandal are the same tenderpreneurs who are involved in the COVID KEMSA billionaire scandal, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it is the same tenderpreneurs that we are probably opening up new avenues now for to engage in procurement of this healthcare, because of course you know there are those few who have now specialized in the procurement of healthcare equipment in this country. You have seen them even building
the Honorable
hospitals across Nairobi.
The Honorable Kimani, just hold on. The Honorable Duale, what is out of order?
Speaker, you know, I really don't like interrupting members of parliament, and also of Honorable Ichungwa's caliber. But Speaker, there's element of relevance. I mean, I have read this bill when I was contributing, and Mr. Speaker, you need to help us, because Honorable Ichungwa is discussing EMS, discussing entrepreneurs, tenderpreneurs. I just, as he was talking, I scanned through the bill, and I'm not seeing anywhere where there's tenderpreneurs, where there's EMS, with a lot of respect to him, so that we move to this very important motion. He's a man who can flow like the sea. He's very, very sharp up in the mind, so but he can spare us sometimes, because you need to guide him.
The Honorable Duale, I have looked at the bill, and I think the Honorable Kimani is well within his rights, because there is a proposal that the NHIF will procure some equipment for some of these facilities. So I think he's within his rights. He's okay. Proceed, the Honorable Kimani.
Thank you, Speaker, for protecting me from the member for Garissa Township. You know, probably he runs a hospital in Garissa or somewhere, and I'm not saying he's one of the entrepreneurs. I know him. He was not involved either in the mess or the KEMSA COVID billionaire scandal. But I was speaking to those who are involved and who, Honorable Speaker, because we are also in a state where state capture, Honorable Speaker, is so real. I must be cautious as a member of parliament that when I see attempts to give such powers to the NHIF board, Honorable Speaker, I must treat it with caution, Honorable Speaker. And when we come to the third reading, I will be doing the necessary, Honorable Speaker, in relation to at least those two aspects. One, as envisaged by clause 11 and clause 24. However, Honorable Speaker, it is not all dark for this bill, Honorable Speaker, because there are very good aspects of this bill that I support. Top among those issues are issues I think Honorable Kolosh has touched on the question of being able to identify the member who is a registered member of NHIF. And the use of biometrics, Honorable Speaker, is one progressive way moving away from the cards and the stamps, the manual things that NHIF has done over the years, and that indeed is quite encouraging. However, Honorable Speaker, it is also important to graduate how we contribute our contributions to NHIF. It is not fair, Honorable Speaker, that we punish a young 18-year-old student who has just graduated from high school, or a young hustler who is hustling, and make it compulsory for them to contribute 300 shillings, while myself as a member of parliament, I think I pay about 1,700 shillings, Honorable Speaker. But the kind of money that I am earning as a member of parliament, Honorable Speaker, it would be possible if we graduated our contributions in such a manner that that young hustler who is unemployed, that young hustler, instead of making it compulsory for him to contribute, we should be able to graduate our contributions to an extent that anybody who is earning maybe 50,000 shillings can contribute 1,000 shillings. Someone like a member of parliament who has a good salary of above 500,000 shillings should be able to contribute up to 30,000, 40,000 shillings, and therefore be able to cushion millions of other Kenyans who are not able to contribute. Honorable Speaker, again, as we come to the third reading, I will be looking at how we can bring amendments, Honorable Speaker, that will reflect a graduated sort of contribution, Honorable Speaker. But let me say, Honorable Speaker, it is a good bill and I support it, with the reservations of the few issues I've pointed out, especially the question of state capture and using our state corporations to enrich the few who hold power, and using legislation to create avenues for them to continue looting and impoverishing our people, so that
the Honorable Danita Gatti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to support the NHIF Amendment Bill 2021. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am very glad because we are talking about healthcare in this country. And Mr. Speaker, the right to health is a fundamental right that is actually enshrined in our Constitution. Mr. Speaker, if you look at Article 43, 1 of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker, it clearly states that every person has a right to the highest attainable standards of health. Mr. Speaker, this is wonderful that we want to make healthcare accessible and affordable in this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, NHIF and the whole issue of healthcare in this country, Mr. Speaker, is not very well understood, and especially in the rural settlements where we come from, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, NHIF as a body must make it mandatory or its responsibility to educate Kenyans about this whole issue of healthcare. If you go to rural areas, Mr. Speaker, so many of our people who live in rural areas are not aware of NHIF and what it does. And even if they know, the few who know, Mr. Speaker, especially where I come from, Mr. Speaker, accessibility is a problem. Mr. Speaker, healthcare in this country is expensive. And I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, because this bill is seeking to actually make sure that healthcare can be reached. It is seeking to enhance coverage, Mr. Speaker, of so many Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, to access healthcare. But, Mr. Speaker, if you look at people who access health in this country, are majorly, Mr. Speaker, those who are employed, like members of parliament, like ourselves, and people who are in formal employment, Mr. Speaker. Look at the poor, vulnerable, elderly people and persons with disabilities. In fact, Mr. Speaker, this bill should be talking about making healthcare free for persons with disabilities in this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, if you look at the elderly and persons with disabilities and their access to healthcare, Mr. Speaker, we cannot just be talking about healthcare in terms of going into a hospital and getting your drugs and getting into a pharmacy and going home, Mr. Speaker. Persons with disabilities, Mr. Speaker, and their accessibility to healthcare is wanting in this country. And, Mr. Speaker, I am glad because this bill is seeking to look at vulnerable persons. Mr. Speaker, I represent vulnerable persons, and especially persons with disabilities. And, Mr. Speaker, when this bill talks about vulnerable persons, including those who require special care, support, protection, including persons with disabilities, Mr. Speaker, this is good. But, Mr. Speaker, if you look, we need to expand. Mr. Speaker, this bill must expand what it means for health care for persons with disabilities in this country. Mr. Speaker, a person with disability does not only just go there for drugs and anything. Mr. Speaker, this bill must look at persons with disabilities in terms of their assistive devices. Mr. Speaker, I do not know whether members in this House understand what it means to access health as a person with disability in this country. Mr. Speaker, it is expensive. It is not just about drugs. It is about the wheelchair. It is about it is about the white cane. It is about, Mr. Speaker, the diapers, for example, for those with incontinence. It is about everything that a person with disability needs, Mr. Speaker, that must be in this bill to make sure, Mr. Speaker, that when you're talking about health care for persons with disabilities, it is not just about malaria queen and Panadols. It is about what makes it possible for a person with disability because, Mr. Speaker, most of the assistive devices in this country must be classified in terms of, things like drugs. If you say that a person with disability who goes to hospital cannot access a wheelchair, for example, or diapers, for example, or catheters, for example, or, Mr. Speaker, sir, NHIF must pronounce itself very clear on what it means health care for persons with disabilities in this country. Mr. Speaker, maybe you do not have a person who lives with a disability in your homestead, but you must understand what it is. And we cannot just say health care for vulnerable persons, including persons with disabilities. Members of parliament who have persons with disabilities in their constituencies must make it easier to understand what it is that a person with disability needs when it comes to health care in this country. And we cannot just be clamping things and saying, vulnerable people, vulnerable persons, including persons with disabilities. Mr. Speaker, those are the issues. And NHIF as a body must do more, Mr. Speaker, to create awareness and to ensure that the vulnerable people that it refers to here, including those with disabilities, Mr. Speaker, are covered. It must just expand. Mr. Speaker, if we go to our rural areas, you will realize that during the COVID-19, Mr. Speaker, you saw the vulnerabilities that we have as a country. Mr. Speaker, sir, our people could not access anything. And Mr. Speaker, sir, if this bill is genuine, Mr. Speaker, as it's proposed to be genuine, it must actually not talk about putting everybody together in terms of making compulsory, contributions compulsory. That for you that you must be put into NHIF to make sure that the membership is compulsory. What about those graduates, Mr. Speaker? What about the jobless people, Mr. Speaker, who require healthcare and they do not have employment the way we have employment, Mr. Speaker, in this country? So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to say that when the state seeks to make NHIF membership compulsory by contributing, ensuring that every adult Kenyan who is 18 and contributes 500 shillings becomes a member, what about those ones who do not have that money? And those include those persons with disabilities and the elderly in this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, NHIF must pronounce itself. And that is why I am using also this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, because we are talking about these amendments, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that I lobby actually NHIF to make health care free for persons with disabilities, especially at the counties, Mr. Speaker. We have a lot to talk about, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to health care, and especially for the elderly and persons with disabilities. It is a good bill, Mr. Speaker, because it seeks to expand and to ensure that Kenya actually covers many people, especially those who are otherwise not covered, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, allow me to support this bill, but allow me also, Mr. Speaker, to say that as much as we are looking at the universal health coverage, looking at what Kenya basically has ratified, because Kenya as a country has ratified so many conventions around health care, Mr. Speaker. The other time here, just the other week, the President was in London for the G7 summit, and part of what was discussed was actually health care financing, Mr. Speaker. So therefore, Mr. Speaker, we must also ensure that even within our own counties, Mr. Speaker, our people are able to access their health care from their village to their counties, and ensuring, Mr. Speaker, that health care really has that financing that is there. Mr. Speaker, we cannot have a referral hospital, for example, Migori County, where I come from and where I represent here, Mr. Speaker, having people come to Migori Referral Hospital and do not have access to health care, Mr. Speaker, in terms of their usage of this bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, NHIF, as I've said, must expand, and it must pronounce itself to what vulnerable persons or persons with disabilities are in terms of their access to this health care, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me to stop there and support this bill.
So very valid contention. I think one of the things that has come out clearly, the Honorable Danita Gatti, is that we need a very clear definition of what vulnerable people are under these proposals. We shall now have contribution from the Honorable Ibrahim Sahal, nominated member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to this important bill. Mr. Speaker, a health nation is a working nation. Therefore, it is the mandate of the government to ensure health lives and promote well-being for all at all age. This will be accelerated by the proposed establishment of the National Health Scheme, and which will enhance the mandate and the capacity of the National Insurance Fund to facilitate and deliver the universal health coverage. The Constitution of Kenya gives the citizens the right to the highest attainable standard of health, in line with the WHO Constitution, which declares health is the fundamental human right, thereby committing to ensuring the highest attainable level of health for all. To attain this, we need an effective and efficient national health scheme. Mr. Speaker, the universal health coverage has been adopted and given a priority as one of the Big Four agenda. This means that if this bill is approved and implemented, all individuals and communities will receive the health service they need without suffering financial hardship. Mr. Speaker, the amendment proposed that NHIF will be receiving additional funds from employers who will make matching contributions and to what employees are liable to pay by introducing penalties for the employers who do not remit their matching contribution in timely manner. The mandatory contribution to the funds by citizens above the age of 18 years will increase funds to the scheme. Mr. Speaker, although the proposed amendment is very effective in tapping the contribution from the employers, this need to design a suitable and favorable model to collect funds from informal sectors, which will further increase the funds to this scheme. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
The Honorable Mboni Mwalika, member for Kitui Rural.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to this bill. On onset, I want to say that I support the bill because any country to develop, you need a healthy population. Because population and the people provide labor, and labor is a factor of production. The more people are healthy, the higher the productivity and therefore economic growth. And as a country, we need to think about how do we provide universal health care so that everybody can go to any hospital and get health care. Health care in this country has become very expensive. There are very few people who can really afford good health care. And especially this time of COVID, I'll tell you every day, every week in our rural areas, we are barring people because they cannot access good health care. The 500 shillings which have NHIF charges, to me is a bit very high, and especially to the rural poor and also the urban poor. The disabled and the vulnerable groups cannot really be able to afford this kind of charges. And therefore, there is need to review these charges and charge differently to different categories so that at least people can be able to afford. Because maybe the rich can pay slightly more and the poor can slightly pay less. The 6 months which is given when you do your first payment, to me is a very, very long period. Imagine somebody who is sick and you are telling the person to pay, start contributing, and then he waits for 6 months before starts accessing services from NHIF. I think this period needs to be reviewed to probably 3 months or even lower so that at least people can be able to access health care. Mr. Chair, it's important to note that health is default function, but it's also important to note that health system in the counties has failed completely. They have failed completely. In fact, you go to health centers, there is no even medicine. On Sunday, I went to my nearest health center, and people are buying dressing materials for their wounds. I mean, it's quite wanting. There is no adequate infrastructure, there is no equipment, and other health essential services. But these counties should be encouraged to channel some of the funds to NHIF so that people can be able to access health services in other hospitals outside the counties. So to me, that is very, very crucial. National government should also come in and subsidize NHIF so that it can be able to provide health services. Lastly, here, and it has already been stated, a lot of people in the rural areas they are not aware about NHIF and even what they stand for. So it's very important for NHIF to create, I'm aware they have offices at county levels, but from the county, do they even go to sub-county level to create awareness? So it's important for NHIF to move down there and create awareness so that people can know what they stand for. Chair, with those few remarks, I support. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Tonoi Kiprotich, member for Bemot Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to also make my contribution on this very, very important bill. From the onset, I want to state clearly that I really support this bill because it's making this cover or this scheme mandatory for every Kenyan. Health is a very important issue which we cannot afford to gamble with, and we must ensure everyone in this country is covered through an health scheme. So this is a very welcome idea. Although it's mandatory, I think it needs to be clarified that it's mandatory in the sense of registration, but in terms of contribution, that may depend on the ability of every Kenyan to pay for it. I know in this bill, the power to make regulation on this idea of being mandatory has been given to the Cabinet Secretary to make. And I believe those regulations should put into consideration the ability of Kenyans to pay for this cover. And I believe also the private insurance companies will not be allowed to take advantage of this national health scheme. Currently under NHIF, whenever a patient goes to an hospital, the insurance companies first claim NHIF before they add anything on top. So they tend to make lots of profits from this. They really take advantage of it. They should co-share with this private scheme when meeting the cost of health care in this country. The issue of fraudulent claims must also be addressed clearly so that this cover will not be too expensive simply because of unnecessary charges or stealing and such. I believe opportunists will not be allowed to take advantage of this scheme the way we have seen in NHIF currently. And I'm also happy that employees are being exempted from any additional charges by this scheme. The people being brought on board are only the employers. Employers must play a certain role in taking care of the health of the employees. So I believe this is welcome, that the employers must chip in so that they have healthy employees who can be more productive when they are serving them. That one I truly support. On the issue of proportionate contribution to this scheme, that one must be considered. I heard somebody talking of hustlers should not be overcharged. That figure of 500 is too high. That figure should be proportionate to the income of a person. If someone is earning $1 million, let it have it at a certain percentage. If it is 1%, 1% of that 1 million. If someone is having an income of 10,000 a month, let it be 1% of that 10,000. So that those who are earning low wages or low salaries cannot be overcharged. So there should be the idea of proportionate contribution based on the salaries of the employee. That one must be considered. I know, just like NHIF, this scheme will be oversighted by the Ministry of Health. And I hope the looting which has been happening and being supervised by Ministry of Health in KEMSA, in even the imported containers and such, will not be transferred into this scheme. The issues of fraud should be well taken care of or well articulated in this bill so that we have all the money being used to serve the Kenyans when they go to the hospitals. I have heard many saying that devolution has failed in this country. I don't agree with those ones who are saying devolution has really failed. Devolving elder has really failed in this country. What has happened is sabotage of devolution. When majorly hospitals up to level 5 are in counties, people are majorly being served by county facilities, the funds, most of the funds remain with the national government, with the Ministry of Health. How will those people in the counties be effective when we are retaining all the funds at the national level? I think we are really doing lots of disservice to our people by retaining money at the national government, at the Ministry of Health, having nearly 100 billion when they are only managing about 4 hospitals. Kenyatta National Hospital, Moi River Hospital, Matare Hospital, and I think there is another one. Only 4 hospitals, and they are remaining with 80 billion shillings. This needs to be addressed so that this money can be taken to the counties and so that the counties can serve the people better at the ground. When we devolve services is much better than when we centralize. So I support the continued devolution of health in this country. Thank you so much. I do support this bill.
Let's have Honorable Mishi.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, hata mimi nasimama kuunga mkono mswada huu ambao unataka kuleta marekebisho kwa sheria ile ambayo inazungumzia bima ya afya ya kitaifa na kuweza kuleta bima ya afya ya kitaifa ambayo itaweza kuweza kupata afya kwa Wakenya wote. Nataka niseme afya imekuwa changamoto sana kwa Wakenya wetu, haswa tukizingatia kumekuwa na matatizo na maradhi sugu kama vile maradhi ya kansa, maradhi ya kisukari na maradhi pia haya ya COVID ambayo sasa tuko nayo tunayaita corona. Mheshimiwa Spika, tunajua
Rais Uhuru Kenyatta amekuwa katika mstari wa mbele kutekeleza mabadiliko kwenye sekta ya elimu nchini Kenya ili kuwapa watoto wote wa taifa hili nafasi ya kuboresha maisha yao. Wiki hii kwenye Project 254,
quality education systems cannot be realized without enhanced domestic finance, and the focus therefore is on governments to particularly on this mandate.
We have all the textbooks that are required, textbooks available, and the textbook is one textbook for one student.
Had it not been for free secondary education, majority of students would not have an opportunity to go through the secondary level.
Wiki hii.
Hapa uko kwa Nduthi, wenzako wanakimbia huko marathon, wanaleta mangolo ndi diamond, uko hapa kwa Nduthi tukichomeka na njoko na sisi. Tarumbeta, tarumbeta, tarumbeta. Ndaka sanga, mami, nikase tu hapo hata tunafanya tusikie semo liu. Oh my god.
Mwambie wewe, niko kwa meza.
Kamungoje bwana wako hapo hivi.
Wao una bahati sana. Mimi nakwambia siku hiyo ni vile tu ulini surprise. Siku hiyo ni wewe ama waniwachilie tu hapa kidogo. Naweza kuchapa vibaya sana. Ni huruma. Mtu wa bodaboda anawacha gari tatu. Sasa driving license.
Mzee, mtu wa bodaboda si binadamu.
No, like what I'm asking.
Usidharau kazi ya mtu.
In the beginning, there was the Word, and it was all. Then there was the light, and the world was revealed. With his gifts, war, love, power, death, faith. First chapter of the first book of World will be open again. Newly remastered in HD. Genesis.
What does this number mean to you? A pack leader? A winner? Or just a number? To us, it means freshness, boldness, vibrancy, and heritage. That's why at KBC Channel 1, we make it easier for you to pop up your family entertainment to a fresh, exciting, and colorful bouquet.
Many man, Africa, try to take my place. Only you will make me change my ways. Only you will make me change my ways. Only you, I wanna many man, Africa, try to take my place. Only you will make me change my ways. Only you will make me change my ways. Only you. Tobacco, not to carry go. Forget you fine, no. My girl, you fine now. Put it inside, oh. Shopping spree every day. I'm on every day. I'm on every day. I'm on every day. Say you want test, man. I'm on a die, yo. You want test this? I gon' be your guy, yo. Shopping spree every day. I'm on every day. I'm on every day. That's on everything. Keep bending it up with the vibe, yeah. Me like a slut and be the wife. Articulating, said she tryna ride. I told her make a bitch, she gon' be mine, yeah. Bring me your love and you better not die. Everything I'm on, shawty say she on. She it on, panties in a bunch. Don Corleone, yellow diamonds like the sun. I caught her what you need. Tatted on your nice size of your ring. 31, let it fall on your spleen. Heard you.
Baby babu wahala, I no like you wahala. Plenty girls on my matter, but I know they shake cassava. Girl, I'm for you.